Welcome back to the show. This is Science versus Conspiracy over coffee. I'm your co-host, Conspiracy.
And I'm Science.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We have a great show this week. It's the first week of the new year, and hope everybody did have a great New Year's. So we're going to be talking about the hidden history of the electric car.
Ooh, vroom vroom.
Vroom vroom. All right, so let's get into it. Marketing can make or break a company and its products. Steve Jobs is a prime example of how brilliant marketing can revolutionize a business and disrupt an entire industry. Apple changed the world by changing how we interact with technology and each other. In contrast, the electric car had a series of marketing missteps 100 years ago that changed the landscape of transportation.
Wait, did you say 100 years ago?
100 years ago. I was surprised too.
Okay.
And actually, it's over 100 years.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, enlighten me. This is interesting. I didn't know this.
All right, so brew some coffee, pull up a chair, and open your mind. Today on Science versus Conspiracy, we will be discussing how a marketing misstep changed the course of the electric vehicle over coffee.
All right.
When you think of electric cars, Tesla, Nissan Leaf, and possibly the Chevy Bolt are the names that come to mind right away.
Prius.
Oh, and the Prius.
It's
yes.
a hybrid, I guess. But
it's a hybrid, yeah.
Still. Yeah, Tesla is the big one that first comes to mind.
Exactly. And it seems like it's a brand new technology to most people.
Yeah.
And governments around the world are jumping on the bandwagon to electrify the entire vehicle fleets.
It's electrifying.
Let's electrify it.
No, that's not what I said. I was doing grease lightning.
Oh.
It's electrifying. Sorry. Actually, that's not from Grease Lightning. It's just Grease.
Just Grease?
Yeah. Oh, shame on me. Shame on you. You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
You've never seen Grease?
I've seen bits and pieces of Grease, but I've never seen the full movie.
Oh, lords. Okay, we have to rectify that. But anyway, I digress.
The technology of electric cars actually dates back to the 19th century.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
No.
A time when horse-drawn carriages were the main mode of transportation, and electricity in homes was still pretty much a luxury. So it's crazy to think that in 1832, a guy by the name of Robert Anderson developed the first crude electric vehicle.
What?
1832.
No way.
Yeah. But it wasn't until the 1870s, when electric cars became more practical. That's still an amazing accomplishment when you think about it.
Okay, so are you going to tell me any more about this Robert Anderson guy and what he did in 1832?
Well, the first official electric vehicle was built from a modified Starling tricycle.
Okay.
So picture a tricycle, two big wheels at the back and a wheel in the front. And instead of like the handlebars, it had like levers to control, I guess, speed and direction.
Okay. And how was it electric?
Underneath the seat, where it was a one-passenger vehicle, so right underneath where the person would sit, there was a bunch of batteries.
Wow.
All connected together to power it.
Wow.
It only got 25 miles per charge, and it topped out at 9 miles per hour, but still.
It's still something.
It was still something.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a kid's science fair project, and I love it. Strapping a bunch of batteries to the undercarriage of their tricycle.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this is a bigger trike for a grown-up, but still, like...
Yeah, but the same principles apply there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was kind of the birth of an electric vehicle.
Wow.
Yeah.
9 miles an hour.
9 miles an hour.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in 1908, the Fritchel Model A Victoria was developed.
Huh.
And it actually is advertised the same amount of miles as the modern Nissan Leaf.
What?
Yeah, at 100 miles range.
Really?
Yeah. It had a 28-cell lead acid battery weighing 400 to 600 pounds. And the battery could last up to 100 miles on a single charge.
Wow.
Before it had to be replaced for about $208, roughly $5,200 in today's dollars.
Okay, so $5,200 in today's dollars.
Yeah, to replace the battery.
And what's the cost of a Tesla battery these days?
Well, that's the thing. You can't, as far as I know, you can't replace an electric car battery.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems. If you guys haven't listened yet to our podcast where we talk about like just how green supposedly an electric car is, you guys should go back and listen to that because we actually talk about that.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the show notes for that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, they can't replace the batteries.
Yeah. Whereas this Fritchel, you could.
You could.
Okay.
Yeah. It was expensive.
Sure.
But it could be done. And apparently it was powerful enough to tow an Oldsmobile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And one of the coolest features is the regeneration system. And not like the Doctor Who regenerating. The regeneration system worked by the car when the car would roll downhill.
Yep.
And if you were coasting, it would turn the motor into a generator and slowly recharge the battery. Little bit by little bit.
That's very cool. That's like the KERS system in F1, the kinetic energy, like where they harvest. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I don't understand why. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know for sure, but that would be something that would be should be well advertised if that is something built into electric cars.
Yeah. Do the modern ones do that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, but I don't think they do.
Okay. Yeah, because for all that I hear and know about electric cars, I've never heard anybody mention that.
Yeah, and you would think that would be one of the
That'd be a massive
feature.
selling point.
Especially in high markets like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And there's lots of hills and there's high electric car adoption there.
Yeah. It's high on all sorts of accounts.
But one of the more controversial electric vehicles was built in a year later in 1909. It was called the Babcock Runabout.
Okay.
And it's controversial because it claimed to have gone on a tour of Illinois on one single battery charge of 1,244 miles.
Wow.
And it's controversial because it's far beyond what any other car range was getting at the time.
Yeah.
It's beyond what we can do today.
Yeah.
For that matter.
So they claimed to have gotten 1,244 miles around the state of Illinois.
Yes.
Wow.
On a single battery charge.
Okay.
And the battery cost $1,600 at the time, roughly. Oh, sorry, not the battery. The whole car cost about $1,600, roughly $49,911 in today's dollars.
Roughly.
Well, it's weird because all the inflation converters wouldn't go back to anything before 1914.
Oh, really?
And they only go to 2022.
Okay.
So I had to fudge it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
But roughly $50,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is still cheaper than the base model of a Tesla.
Yeah, because that's about 60 or 65, isn't it?
Yeah, so just as a comparison, the Tesla Model 3 was $59,990.
Oh, wow.
In Canadian dollars. That's without adding like any other features. When you load up the website and buy now, that's what comes up.
Okay. Mind you, today's modern Tesla is a lot more luxury than Babcock Runabout.
Runabout, yeah.
I'm sure it was. But anyway.
Right. There's obviously quite a bit of difference in the vehicles and everything.
Yeah.
But the Tesla gets 576 kilometers or 358 miles per single charge.
Okay. And so these folks were claiming 1244.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way back then.
So has that been somehow verified? Like verifiable or?
It is and it isn't. Like people, the actual vehicle is in New York at one of the museums there.
Oh, cool.
On display. But from what I understand, the route that they took may or may not have been as long as they said. So that's kind of where the discrepancy comes in.
Ah, okay.
But still, they went a huge distance on a single battery charge, apparently.
That's incredible.
Now, going back a little bit, because we're at 1909 now.
Okay.
So we just have to go back a little bit to 1897 again.
Okay.
And the best-selling car in the U.S. was actually an electric vehicle.
In 1897?
In 1897.
What was it? Who made it?
The Pope Manufacturing Company, Columbia Motor Carriage.
I thought you were going to say the Pope made it.
Yeah, the Pope Mobile. By the turn of the century, steam-powered vehicles actually took over and outsold all the other technologies,
Okay.
selling 1,681 units compared to 1,500, so there was close selling between steam power and electric.
Wow.
And gas-powered was under 1,000 units.
Wow.
936.
That's wild.
Yeah. In 1903, the Olds Motor Company, or Motor Works, Oldsmobile, finally pushed the gas-powered vehicles to the top of the sales charts.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, we have 3 or 4 major ways of powering motor vehicles.
Right. So we got steam,
Mm-hmm.
we've got electric, and we've got gas.
Yep.
Okay.
And so ethanol is another form. And that was gaining traction in the more rural communities, with farmers being able to produce their own for their own farm equipment.
It's like moonshine for your car.
Exactly. But because of prohibition, and I'll get into that in another episode, because there's a whole conspiracy theory about John D. Rockefeller and his push for prohibition, and why ethanol wasn't a viable source of fuel.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And it was about this time, like 1903, 1904, when electric vehicles kind of started taking these missteps.
Okay, so tell me about that.
In the late 1890s, there was these 2 business partners, Petro Solomon and Henry Morris, and they were developing a business plan and an electric car, but it was an electric cab.
Okay.
Called the Electrobat.
Electrobat.
Electrobat. It was created in Philadelphia in 1894. So they started working on it in late 1890s.
Okay.
And then by 1894, they had a proof of concept ready.
Okay.
They were both electric vehicle proponents, and in a speech in 1885, Solomon, he described the gas-powered vehicle as marvelously complicated, with its many chains, belts, pulleys, pipes, valves, and stopcocks. One or another of them will always be out of order. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the idea.
Okay.
So it's very complicated,
Yeah.
is what he's saying.
Yeah, so not unreasonable to think that it'll fall apart.
It will fall apart easily.
And so that was before they had the proof of concept for their Electrobat.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I, from what I understand, electric cars, and even today, they're somewhat less complicated, less moving parts
Than a gasoline
than
car.
a gasoline car.
Okay.
So the 2 men refined their design over the next couple of years, and then they unveiled in Manhattan in 1897 their taxi service, with dozens of vehicles ready to serve thousands of people in their first month.
Cool. Was there a bat logo on it? Where did the bat come from? In the name Electrobat.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from. It should have a bat logo, though.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
A bat with like little lightning bolts
Zzz.
for wings. Mock it up. Okay, go ahead.
But unfortunately, the design was flawed because they had a limited range and they needed to be recharged every couple of hours.
Okay.
But recharging took hours to do.
Oh no.
So this is a huge problem if you have your whole business built around being out in the public, driving around all day.
Yeah, for sure.
Recognizing that they had this issue, a team of engineers devised a way to swap out the batteries.
Okay.
And they had a battery depot at 1684 Broadway in New York.
Cool.
And this battery swapping could be done in minutes, and they would pull in, swap it out, new battery, and then the car could go on again, and then they could take their time recharging the battery.
Quick pit stop.
Yep, quick pit stop.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's like one misstep after another.
Yeah.
Because there was mismanagement in the company. They had it franchised, and the franchises they didn't know what they were doing really. So they were losing money.
Oh no.
People started buying their own cars. So they didn't really need the taxi service.
Okay.
I guess they were becoming more affordable, and people were buying their own private cars.
Okay.
And the private cars that people were buying were gas-powered cars.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where the big misstep happened, is that the range.
Okay.
With the range, you could go far greater distances, and in a petrol car.
Yeah.
And they were advertised as a adventure vehicle.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
So the sedans of the day were adventure vehicles. Because you could go further in them.
Yes.
Okay.
So electric cars peaked at 1910.
That's just bizarre, though, to even have that sentence out there.
Mm-hmm.
Electric cars in 1910 peaked.
They peaked.
So is this where the marketing missteps were coming in too?
Yeah, because they were adventure vehicles made for what at the time made for men, because they were seen as being more mechanically inclined and being able to work on their vehicles, and they liked tinkering. So the gas-powered vehicles were becoming more reliable, and they were able to fix things on.
And a lot of men didn't want their women to drive.
Exactly. That was the other thing, that it was another way of controlling their women, how far away that they can go.
Yeah.
Because the marketing misstep here, what I see is that the electric car companies started advertising them as cars for women, like electric cars.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I had no idea it was going there.
Back around that time, it was seen as a simpler vehicle. Women could operate it without any trouble, and they could just go to the store and back. And that's where the marketing end of it came in. And maybe if they didn't market it so segregated, men and women, things may have been different. But because women only represented 15% of the drivers in Los Angeles, for example,
okay,
in 1914,
okay,
and 5% in Tucson.
Wow.
So very few women were buying or able to drive.
Yeah.
Like I said, as the technology advanced with petrol-based vehicles, electric cars kind of died out, and the amount of women that were buying or even able to drive was so low that the business plans of these electric car companies just kind of failed. And even car companies like Ford, who is also developing alternative fuel sources, like they had an electric car and they had an ethanol-based car.
They did?
They did.
Okay.
And I'll get into that in the other podcasts when we talk about the alcohol prohibition.
Okay.
But there were other car companies that were making electric vehicles alongside gas-powered cars.
Okay.
And the business just wasn't viable. They weren't making enough money to continue the research and to continue production of these electric cars.
Right.
Not to mention, like, the batteries, they were still lead acid batteries, which is different than the lithium ion batteries that we have today that are far more efficient.
Sure.
But just thinking, like, 100 years ago, if we had to have developed the technology and the battery capabilities way back then, where we could be today, like, we could actually be something that would make sense, or we might not even know about what it's like to have a gas-powered car.
That's so bizarre to even think about, because that's what our society is built upon.
And that was the whole thing about how the motor vehicle really got going, was like in large cities like New York City, where there was like hundreds or like 300,000 horses in the late 1800s.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, and there's a report that going from
It must have been very stinky.
yeah. Let me find it here.
So much poop on the road.
Yeah, like streets were blocked by horse manure,
Oh God.
and you couldn't pass.
Yeah.
And the smell,
Oh God.
yeah, it was disgusting. So a lot of people brought up back then with gas-powered cars about the environmental impact on gas. So like that conversation isn't anything new.
Right.
They were talking about it way back then. But the benefits of automobiles and gas-powered cars outweighed the downsides of that technology right now at that point.
At that time, yeah.
At
the time in the 1900s or 1910s, whatever it was.
Yeah, because they could get rid of all the horses, all the poop, and all the disease that went along, that goes along with it.
That's true. Yeah, people don't think of that part of it.
Yeah, but there was like 500,000 or 300,000 horses in New York City alone.
That's just wild to think about.
Yeah. So the electric car and all these different, like the steam and gas powered, they were different technologies, all kind of competing at the same time. But electric proved to be, back then at least, kind of the best solution because it was simple to use. The range was fine for what they needed at the time.
Right.
And they were fairly, I guess, inexpensive. Like today, like $50,000, $60,000. But if that, excuse me, if the technology kept improving, our electric vehicles might not be $80,000, $80,000 today.
Can you imagine how different things would have been if they had said, well, first of all, if the society back then hadn't been quite so patriarchal and, trying to control the women with that big, huge marketing misstep by saying that the electric cars are ideal for women to just go on their little shopping runs.
Yep.
Then perhaps the manly men could have potentially embraced it as well. If also, I guess several things would have had to have been working in concert for this to have taken off, of course. And they didn't. But, for example, if they had also been able to set up those battery depots, several, and if they hadn't been so mismanaged by the franchisees and whatnot.
But even the battery depots, like with the batteries being pulled out, it could be like the propane tank. You return a can, and you get another battery.
Yeah.
And there could have been like a program or something set up like that instead of having or it could be like at the gas station.
Right.
Except you pull up, you pay for a new battery, they pull out the old one.
Just another option.
Yeah.
You want regular, diesel, or battery.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of the Tesla charging stations that we have all over the place now and stuff. That's so wild to think about.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been around for over 100 years.
Honestly, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That just boggles the mind to think that they had actually been so relatively advanced at the time, only to see it completely fall away.
Yeah, and some people are thinking that because it was so advanced, the technology was so advanced, that how did it get developed so quickly? Because the time frame for research and development to create the cars and the batteries didn't really flow at a reasonable rate. Like it was quicker than normal. So where did the technology come from?
Was it the Incas?
It must be.
Our kid was just talking about the Incas, just a little backstory, and how quickly they advanced through their stages of civilization. So that's a little inside joke in case our kid ever listens to this, and I don't think she will.
Yeah.
But we love her anyway.
So I'm not going to get into any of those conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't know. I haven't really read too much more about that.
But if folks are interested, they could request it, and you could look more into it.
But there are those who think that there might be something, perhaps extraterrestrial, advanced human, something hidden, some hidden technology that we're not being made aware of.
So, other than the conspiracy theory part of it, why do you think? And I don't know if you have an answer, but like, why do you think nobody really knew about this history of the electric car? Because I was completely unaware of it.
And I was unaware until a couple weeks ago when I came across something on Twitter and then started looking into it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because I think it's being billed as this advanced new technology that it's going to revolutionize and change the world. If we electrify, if we buy electric cars, and all the sins of the world will go away.
And Elon's taken all the credit for it.
Yeah. But maybe, and I don't know. And there's another, I guess, aspect of that with the conspiracy technology part of it, that somebody wanted to have it buried because just having it buried.
Maybe it wasn't as much of a government scheme moneymaker as all of the fallout from gasoline cars.
That's one of the theories with the ethanol-based fuels.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing about the prohibition and the ethanol discussion that you're going to have.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and some people have debunked it, but we'll get into that as well.
Ooh, debunking.
Debunking.
I like debunking.
But I guess we'll leave it there today.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like the show, please subscribe and share it with your friends.
Visit us on Patreon.
Yep, we'll leave a link down below. Until next week, remember, being paranoid is smart.
But also, it's important to stay curious but rely on the facts.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Research and writing was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.